Lawyers of Reddit, what was your OIM defiantly winning this one moment? I'm not a lawyer, but I was the defendant in a DUI case. All shit aside, it was 6 years ago and I know I fucked up and I know I was a piece of shit in that moment. I've learned from it. No one else was involved and I didn't damage anything and I'm a much better person now, etc, etc. And I fought it for several reasons that aren't important to this question/story. During my trial, while the DA was laying out the evidence against me, the officer that arrested me was on the stand and the DA asked him why he pulled me over, and the cop, younger, early 20s, about the same age as I was at the time, had a brain fart and said something like, "I don't know. I just thought I should." My lawyer's face lit up like a Christmas tree. I had a client who had a pretty severe slip and fall in a pharmacy. In my state, we are not allowed to see surveillance of the subject until after the deposition or other similar testimony is taken. The rule is in place to protect defendants so we don't coach the client based on what we see in the video. Anyway, we take the deposition, then they send the video. Not 30 minutes later I get a call from opposing counsel wanting to settle. The video revealed that my client had fallen, passed out and peed herself. She was very elderly, and very hurt. The manager of the store had an employee put signs out showing wet floor, and mop up around the lady, all while she was unconscious, all before calling 911. Settled that one for the policy limits right there. Not a lawyer, of course, but I lived in a house with a slumlord property manager. Everything looked okay when we moved in, but we noticed a leaking spot in the ceiling. They just came and painted over it multiple times. We learned after the fact that half the house didn't even get air conditioning and had no air circulation, with windows nailed shut. After a year, my daughter developed asthma, my son had chronic sinus infections, and my husband and I had headaches and were sick every month. We also began to have issues with bugs no matter what we tried. I sent the kids off to their dads and my husband and I pulled our shit apart. We found mold on everything. Nothing in a visible place because I clean a lot. But once we pulled back furniture and mattresses, it was everywhere. I took pictures and had excellent documentation of our landlords. Less than stellar attention. We broke our lease and moved out with their approval, versus having them put us in a hotel. We threw away so much shit, all of which was documented. They tried to hit me with a $3,000 bill saying we ripped doors out, doors I had pictures of being full of mold inside. I had about 100 pictures and about 30 pages of documents. They tried to say we trashed the place. My lawyer sent theirs just a few images and email transcripts and I had my deposit back a week later. My lawyer said the only reason he took my case was because of all of the documentation I provided. I was defending a company being sued for kicking a customer out for being drunk. He showed up to trial, small claims, wasted at 10 a.m. The judges in small claims are lenient on process. They like to adjudicate on the merits. So we started. He's the plaintiff, so he goes first. Can barely stand during his opening statement. Knocks over his shopping bag full of evidence. Just awful. The court put a stop to it and ruled in my client's favor. The only words I spoke were putting my name on the record. Not a lawyer. I represented myself in a restraining order hearing, and I was terrified. I was the petitioner and I was in the same room as my abuser for the first time since I'd obtained the emergency order. I felt a lot better as soon as my abuser's lawyer butchered my name, and even better when the judge kept telling him off. Best moment, though, was when he declined to cross-examine my third witness because my other two had destroyed the points he was trying to make. Deleted. Keeping this as vague as possible to not dox myself, but my security camera caught the plaintiff putting a human poop in my mailbox. God. This is going to read like it belongs in r/that happened. My dad saw the video, which was famous at his firm. Workers' comp claim for a back injury that seems suspicious, so they stick a pie on the guy after a while, which is fairly common. Pie comes back with a video of the guy batting softball batting practice, talking his back over and over. Exactly what he says he can't do. Okay, whatever. People get caught all the time. The camera pans and who is shagging balls in the outfield? Opposing fucking counsel. So, yeah, case dropped and the judge took it up with the bar. Truck driver changed his story on the stand about how the accident happened from what he had always said previously. Next on the stand, the police officer who had responded to the scene gives this new version too. I asked him on cross when he heard this new version, and he said, "In the hallway just before I came in, oh, I'm definitely winning this one." When the other lawyer got a call on his cell phone while he was making his closing argument to the judge, he told the judge just a second and took the call. I was a complete newbie attorney, practicing bankruptcy, which I had no experience in prior to this job, so little experience. In fact, that basically all I had been told relevant to this particular case was this: if someone has filed for a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, and their car has recently been repossessed, the creditor has to give it back or you can sue them for money sanctions. And while that is often true, it is not the full story, and it differs slightly depending in the jurisdiction. Anyway, I file a very basic motion for sanctions. We want car, they won't give car. We want an order for the car and money sanctions. However, a day or two before the hearing, opposing counsel files a response that lays out some pretty solid reasoning for why they didn't have to give back the car. I enjoyed working at that firm. But one thing they lacked was a more technical understanding of bankruptcy law. They weren't bad attorneys, but not many there had really ever cracked open the bankruptcy code and read more than a few relevant parts. Maybe a good analogy would be a religious person who has an understanding of their religious text from having been preached to, but not ever really reading the book itself. So here I am, a newbie attorney, with second-hand knowledge of the bankruptcy code, a day away from arguing a very technical case, and all I can get from anyone is basically a shrug. Go get 'em, kid. I spent all day and most of the night before prepping for the hearing, and frankly, his argument did make a lot of sense, but I came up with a marginal counter-argument, and I was ready to at least not embarrass myself at the hearing. Like a true newbie, I get to the podium and just launch into this very technical assessment of the case. My knees are shaking, and it becomes clear as I continue, from the judge's puzzled expression, that the judge had no idea what I was talking about, what the facts of the case were, or what the other side's argument was. The judge silences me with a hand. Opposing counsel, their motion says they didn't get the car back. Why not? Well, Your Honor, based on this law, you have to give the car back. But Your Honor, there is an exception for. No, you have to give the car back. In other jurisdictions, there is an exception for. Counsel, I will fine your client $50,000 per day until the car is returned. We ultimately worked out a settlement in the hallway where the client got their car back, some money sanctions, and our attorney's fees. The attorney called their client and essentially explained that he thought they had a winning position, but it was clear that the lower court judge was not having it, so it was probably cheaper to settle rather than have to appeal. As it happens, since then this same issue has been litigated a couple of times in front of some other judges in this district, and the results are all over the map. And I think the Court of Appeals will eventually need to give a ruling. But as soon as I heard this judge roar $50,000 per day, I knew I had looked into winning that case. Opposing part told the judge to go fuck herself. It can't get any better than that. Not a lawyer. My case hasn't even gone to court yet, suing old landlord. Landlord lied in the documents submitted to the judge for the pre-hearing and I have proof she is lying. Lawyer is very excited about it. When the judge called all counsel back into chambers during trial and told the opposing attorney, the jury hates you, really, really hates you. When I finally proved the defendant guilty in Phoenix, writes Ace attorney. I own a restaurant/bar and we had a young rookie police officer hovering next door 3 to 4 nights a week towards close and he was pulling everyone over for failure to make a complete stop. Obviously most of the people were guilty of a rolling stop. Most people got a warning, but he was trolling for DUIs. One night we saw him parked across the street and my friend was leaving, so I went out and stood there as witness that he came to a full and complete stop in case he got pulled over. The officer saw me standing there and my friend came to a complete stop, like a really good complete stop. I walked away after my friend was out of sight. Next day my friend said that he had got pulled over after I walked away and had blown a .09 DUI. The point of this story is that when I was called as a witness at trial, the officer and my versions of the story were absolutely the opposite. When I was dismissed by the DA, I asked if I could make a statement. The DA objected, but the judge allowed it. So I said, so if I testify that, insert friend's name, came to a full and complete stop and the officer says it was a rolling stop, then one of us is committing perjury. And I'm confident that I am not committing perjury. The courtroom grew a little loud with chatter. We were dismissed. The officer resigned a short while after that. Turns out as a rookie, he had a ranking officer that was the bad egg riding shotgun and made him make the traffic stop regardless of probable cause. Poor guy getting a tainted reputation from a bad senior officer.